Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
On this edition of Minnesota Original, cartoonist Zak Sally writes, illustrates, and publishes his own underground comics, including the series Sammy the Mouse. Monica Reedy layers etchings of everyday objects in plexi-glass, creating complexity in her mixed media sculptures. And Robert Robinson performs with the Twin Cities Community Gospel Choir. These artists and more, now on Minnesota Original.
This machine drives me insane. Yeah, it's pretty temperamental. I mean, you get it going. Once we have this thing dialed in, I think it's going to be fantastic, but it's been driving me insane. My name is Zak Sally. I'm a cartoonist. I run a small publishing company called Lamano 21. I'm also a musician sometimes, as well as a teacher. Lamano, the more it progresses, is just about getting something in the world that feels like that there's some sort of personality there. You know, somebody put in time to make this thing happen, and you can. That's as important to me as you know, the material that's in there. That's like somebody made this with their hands, and I mean, I love it to death. I love it so much that all this stuff happened. You know, this is all the stuff that I've put out on Lamano. Some of it I printed, some of it I didn't, some of it I partially printed. Actually, I started the label in the early 90s with a friend of mine, and back when it kind of came from the music world where a label was like, it just sort of was a signifier of this thing that you did. When I was a teenager, it was always like, oh, I'll get somebody to publish me someday. And that being like, I'll put out stuff and then someday some real publisher will publish me. And the more time went on, the more I realized there isn't any real publisher. It's like you either get it done or you don't get it done. So the stuff I put out in Lamano, the more I like it, the more it doesn't seem to be one thing or the other. You know, is it a comic book? Is it a book? Is it not a book? Is it a memoir? I don't know what it is, but the more of that stuff, the more it kind of goes in between those things, the happier I am, the more indefinable the thing is. Just, this is a great thing and it should be out in the world. I put out a record of my own stuff last year. Oh, that's upside down. Yeah, some of it I actually even made in this room, like recorded some of it. I got everything I need right here in my mouth. That time I told. From 1993 to 2005, I played bass with a band called Low, which were some friends of mine from Duluth that I had known for a long time. They're still a band. 2 years ago, for some reason that I can't entirely figure out, I decided to make a record just to see if I could do it. Just playing all the instruments and writing the songs and singing it all and recording it all myself. The last couple of years I've been teaching full-time at MCAD in town, which is one of the only schools that has a comics program.
Working with Zak Sally has been such a pleasure. I wish I could just like clone him and make 100.
We're the style you usually draw in, and then this new like cartoony style, which is hitting the rails pretty hard, you know, in the spots where it comes together, where that is just...
There's something in his own work that I think is really special. The writing has something more behind it than just sort of the surface appearance. And he's been able to sort of generate that from the students.
The thing that I get in there and try and tell them, which is more than any kind of technical knowledge of like, you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do this. You need to develop a voice that is as much your own as you can make it, and try and be as honest as you're able with that voice. This whole area is for my cartooning. If I kind of separate out my life in that way, I started working on this story that I was hoping I was going to finish in 10 years, but it's going to take longer than 10 years. It's called Sammy the Mouse. The third issue of my comic, Sammy the Mouse, came out a couple months ago. It's one long, continuous story that has a beginning and a middle and an end, and I'm just kind of trying to spend as much time as possible at getting that thing out and finishing it. Sammy the Mouse is kind of an alcoholic. He likes to stay at home a lot and just kind of wants to be left alone, but the whole story is about how that's not necessarily what happens, and you don't necessarily get to decide things like that.
I think the artwork of Zak is very independent, art-centered. It's not going to be something you see in a Superman comic book. It's raw and it's gritty, it's textural. At the same time, it's simple. It reminds me more of maybe European comic sensibilities than what we might think of mainstream America art style.
People have described Sammy the Mouse as nightmarish and terrifying. And again, I don't mean to be coy. I think it's hilarious. I mean, I think it's really funny. I want it to be like a fun comic to read. My process is again, every cartoonist process is different. Mine is one of the dumbest processes I've ever heard of in my life, and I would change it if I could, but I can't. I write my stuff in the language of comics, where I'm not, the words and the pictures are not separate, discrete things. They're part of the same reading experience, and it's the push-pull between them that kind of makes things happen. Some sequences I have completely worked out, and others I'm kind of waiting for, you know, I know this thing needs to happen at this point, and I know that this thing needs to happen at this point, but it might take me a good long while to figure out what goes in between. I want somebody someday to do some psychological profile of cartoonists and what kind of person it takes who would want to sit in a room creating this whole world by themselves with no input, and then send it out in a way that they're not going to hear much, you know? Like, I think it takes a really specific kind of person to do that. A lot of them are bonkers. And also the other thing about cartooning is I've finally gotten semi-comfortable with the fact that staring at the wall is like one of the biggest parts of my process. When I was growing up, there was basically superhero comics, and that was the name of the game. There's way more knowledge and acceptance of comics now than there was even 10 years ago. And I think 10 years from now, it'll be even more so. I feel like comics can do anything, and anybody who thinks they can't are wrong. And with comics, you have one person. It's just it can be like a very, very singular vision that's coming across. And I think all of the best cartoonists, that's why it's great, you know? Reading a good comic by somebody who's doing that is an experience unlike any other art form. If art is anything, it's like taking these things that aren't in the world and getting them out into the world somehow. And you got to figure out how to make that happen. You know, if it's a comic, you got to figure out how to get that out of your brain and get it onto paper. And there's just more stuff that I want to do. And it looks like this is the way I'm doing it. So there's no point in stopping now, you know?
That door they'll turn you into rats, and you'll get caught in a rat trap. Too much drama, mom's the word. Small town gossip, hey, haven't you heard? That girl's on the rebound, all just skipping around. Everyone's in the shoulder, but you're the talk of the town. Ow! Black book, didn't sail with a hook. I gotta take another look. Am I a page in your black book? Black door, why you hanging on the door? What do you want? I'll see you at the black door. I'll see you. I'll see you. I'll see you at the black door.
The rope started when I was trying to simplify my work, and I was trying to find imagery that was commonplace and came from everyday life, that wasn't necessarily an art subject. And so I just had rope laying around, and I was looking at it and enjoying the compositions that it makes and the flexibility of the line. And then through that discovery process, for me, it just led to a lot of metaphorical meaning and connotation. My name is Monica Reedy, and I'm a mixed media artist. Currently, I'm using plexiglass panels that I etch and draw on and then layer. So there's a translucency to the images, and you can see one layer underneath the next layer. Once I have the composition all mapped out, I take those drawings and transfer those onto plexiglass and etch the rope images into them. I'm using a dry point tool. The reason that I like this technique is that it gives me this really fine quality of line, and it creates this nice textural feel on the surface of the plexiglass. I just love the sensual quality of it. Another aspect of the process that appeals to me is the labor that's involved. While I get really frustrated that it takes so long to complete the work, I think there's something inherent in that process of the repetitive motion and the spending time with the work that comes through in the final product that wouldn't be there if it was a quicker process. My work is mostly recognized by the unusual use of materials. I tend to use materials that are not typical artist materials, aluminum flashing, chalkboard, beeswax, versus the techniques that I use are quite traditional. So I will combine traditional realistic drawing with an unusual kind of industrial material. The material aspect is as important to me as the imagery. There's always been a three-dimensional quality to my work, and I'm interested in the objects that's being created, not just the image and the illusion that's being created. So sometimes I'm thinking like a sculptor, and sometimes I'm thinking like a painter. The plexiglass, in some ways it's a very forgiving material, but in other ways it's very unforgiving. So once I etch into it, it's, I can't erase it. But, if I'm painting on it or if I'm drawing on it, it gives me a lot of flexibility. So I will put this dark down and then I'll lighten it up with another layer. And the more pigment I put down, the more opaque the rope becomes in the final composition, and the more of a shadow it casts on the lower levels. So it creates another dimension to the work and enhances that three-dimensional quality. I've always been interested in both layering imagery and combining different visual planes. And I think it's an attempt to, in some way, convey the complexity of life, in that what's on the surface isn't necessarily the whole story. And even though I'm not literally trying to explain that in each individual piece, I think that the layering acts as its own metaphor. I'm adding a lighter pigment with a colored pencil. In some work, I actually draw another shadow on there, so it creates an illusion of a shadow, so that there's this interplay between what's real and what's not real. It plays with the way that we perceive. Okay, once I'm done applying the pigment, then I bring it back over here and see how it looks all together with all the other layers. I like that element that I could present an image to the viewer that didn't have an inherent meaning, but was open to multiple interpretations so that each viewer could bring their own interpretation to that. My job is to create something that's interesting enough to look at so that the viewer will bring his or her own experience to the work and create a personal meaning out of it rather than something that I convey.
Let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, yeah, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Would you help me sing now? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let I'm gonna let it shine, yeah. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere.
Gospel music, to me, it is a message about good news. No matter where an individual might be in their struggle of life, it is a message that, in spite of whatever you might be dealing with, that things are going to get better and that you are not alone. My name is Robert Robinson, and I am a gospel singer. I've been singing since I was a child, since I was about 5 or 6 years old. I started out pretty much singing with my brothers and sisters, and later on, after my father became a pastor, I started directing the choir at my father's church. Then later on, kind of branched out and started working with other groups and choirs that were outside of my dad's church. So I've been doing this a long time. Swing low.
sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Improvisation helps to take the song a little bit further than what may be able to be done with just the chorus alone. In most gospel songs, the choir lays a foundation of the constant message of what the song is trying to say. The soloist, through whatever verses and improv, basically takes the message of that song a little closer, a little deeper to the individual. Improvisation, in many respects, it can be just your own personal insights on what the song means to you, and just taking it and musically making it interesting. You can scat around it, you can hit high notes or low notes. There's all sorts of ways you can interpret it.
Oh, yes. You may have all this world, but I want you. Jesus.
Because I work with a lot of choirs that have various levels of musical ability, I don't really come at them saying you need to sound like Aretha or you need to sound like Whitney or none of that kind of stuff, because then you're just totally throwing them to the wolves, because nobody can sound like Aretha but Aretha. So what I want them to do, though, is find themselves, to hear the message of the song and to find themselves in that message. And then from that point, begin to share out of your ability, wherever it may be, in such a way that somebody could believe what you're talking about.
This little light of mine, yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine.
The Twin Cities Community Gospel Choir gathers people from all over the Twin Cities area. It's a group that I started actually about 21 years ago, and they are a group of wonderful people that have just embraced gospel music, inspirational singing, and they kind of carried my heart and passion of taking it anywhere and everywhere the door would be opened. And so I applaud them, love them, and so much appreciate them. I don't know where my path is going to take me. I wish I could tell you in 5 years I'll be here and in 10 years I'll be here. But I do know that it is my desire that whatever path I'm on, that I will be an effective instrument, still able to use my talent and my abilities to touch the lives of people. No matter who they are, I just want to be somebody that can be used to make a positive impact. So I'm honored to be able to do what I do and do it here in the Twin Cities, which has just become a great mecca of great music and musicians. I feel very, very blessed to be a part of what's happening here. Okay, my voice has overpowered a few mics in its time. If I'm in the studio and I start singing, they have to change all of the settings and everything on the board. To me, it's just who I am. You know, I'm not trying to put on a show or anything. I'm giving it to you the way I feel it inside. I'm not trying to tear up your mics, and I'm not trying to make life difficult for you because you're a technician. And then I think over the years, a lot of people, you know, have gotten used to it, and they know they bring their compressors and they're ready. You know what I'm saying?
Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.